what's up, guys? Andy here with Pittsburgh Weiss Schwartz. We're back again with another Deck Tech, joined today with Carmen.
What's up? What's up?
And we will be going over a Grisaia deck today. The set releases tomorrow officially, I believe.
Yep. Yeah, it'll be out today when you go watch this.
Yep. And we had already talked about what the de facto meta build is going to be looking like for Roots of Grisaia in English in a previous video. We're going to mention it a little bit at the end of the video, but we'll also link to the previous video in the description as well, since that deck had a few set 2 cards in it. But figured I would keep my promise I made in the set review and talk about my spicy 3-climax Aerosmith deck here for Fruits of Grisaia that I've done a lot of testing with. Here is the whole deck list laid out in all of its glory. If you're here just for the list, leave us a like on the way out. That really helps out. And yeah, so this is a lot different than the meta list, running almost none of the similar cards except for the JCs. But this set had the combination of the Gold Bar Climax with the Chizuru Climax switch means that we can switch between any of our 3 Climax combos pretty seamlessly. And I played this list a lot in JP, but in English, having access to the JC with it, it's going to be a real nice way to recur your level 1 combo as well. So starting off with level 0s, we got 18 of them here. 4 copies of the Coin Flip Machina. When you attack with it, you look at the top 2 of your deck and choose your trigger, which is really nice in case you want to either trigger a gold bar or make sure that you're not triggering gold bars and flooding your hand. And at the beginning of your opponent's draw step, you reveal your top card of your deck. If it's level 1 or higher, this card can pop back to your hand and be a plus. So great plussing level 0, one of my favorite cards from the set that usually doesn't see a lot of play, but we have the room for it in this deck, and we need it for yellow fix. And then 4 copies of the Kazuki JC. So this mills 2 on play, potentially giving one of your characters, either herself or anyone else, 1500 power. There's the very useful effect when your other Grisaia character is frontal attacked, you can pay 1 and send this Kazuki to your memory to return the card being attacked to your hand. So something special about this type of JC profile is this one actually goes to memory instead of waiting room like they usually do. So it's quite a bit better than these profiles usually are. And that's a theme that you'll see with Grisaia is they have ways to generate a lot of memory with this and some of the other cards we'll be mentioning here in a little bit. Moving on to some more plussing level 0s. We got 3 copies of the Brainstorm. This is just like the one from No Game No Life where you scry the top card of your deck when you play it. Combines very nicely with the feeding event that we are running, which I'll talk about at level 1, but basically this lets you set the top card of your deck to make sure that your event is refunding your stock. Or it can be useful throughout the game just to either check your trigger before going to attacks or to try to essentially go an extra card with your Brainstorm. And then 3 copies of the Psychology Test Kazuki, which is an on-play salvage Ricky. Grisaia doesn't have a traditional Ricky, I don't think. In the second set, we get access to a top check 4 Ricky, but this is some of the best green fix we have at level 0 in the set. And this deck's primarily green that I'm running here. But you could run this or the clean cut if you wanted a different green card. But I'm just going with the typical Ricky effect here. And then pretty clean level 0 here, rounding it out with a couple more 2-ofs. 2 copies of the Superb Team Machina and Sachi. This card allows us to discard to bond to our feeding event, which is a fantastic event card. And the fact that this card can discard anything to grab these events from our graveyard's nice, since we are running 6 bar climaxes. So if those start flooding our hand, that's a good way to get them out of our hand. And 2 copies of the Youthful Look Chizuru, which is the climax swap. And it also looks at the top 2 cards of our deck and can rearrange them when we play it, which again synergizes with the feeding effect or can inform us upon a potential Brainstorm. Moving into level 1 here, we have the Lone Wolf Yumiko. This is like the Union combo from Konosuba, if you can remember that one. So when you reverse your opponent with it, if you have the climax down, you get to blind stock the top card of your deck and then reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a level 1 higher card, you get to add it to your hand. So this is always giving you an extra stock and maybe a plus on reverse. So if you're getting if you tri-field this and can get multiple pluses with it, it feels really good, generating you a whole bunch of stock and refunding your hand. The fact that this is on gold bar is fantastic, meaning we're never going to not be able to go for a level 1 combo pretty much, because gold bars will naturally flow into our hand as the game goes on. And because we are running 3 different climax combos, and sometimes we have to pay a lot of stock to switch those climaxes around and to play our stuff down at level 2 and then expend more resources at level 3 to go for our finisher, being able to generate a whole bunch of extra stock is definitely wanted. So that's the reason I chose to go with this as my level 1 combo, for the gold bar climax to switch around and for the extra stock. And then again, a pretty clean level 1 here, rounding out level 1s with 2 copies of the Yuji Drop Search, which is kind of a weird profile to see. Even back when Grisaia came out, this was a weird one. Just a level 1 drop search at the double rare slot's kind of weird, but he's great green fix for our deck and can help us get climaxes or whatever else is getting stranded in our hand out of our hand.
I think time has definitely proven this card's worth and cards like it. I remember when Sal Alicization Volume 2 came out and everybody was freaking out about the Xenon that's like a level 1 climax swapper, so you don't have like a bad lane at level 1. It's like a functional attacker, and like Yuji can do that as well. So I think people caught on that like the profiles are pretty decent. I think the bigger problem with the card was that it was green. The meta deck is like very firmly red-blue with a yellow splash and no room for green, but you get to play it here, and that's really cool. Also gives your card power so that your Yumiko can get reversed, which is pretty nice.
He gives himself power on attack.
Oh, it's only this
Just
card?
himself,
I misread it. It's still pretty good. He's a 7k attacker with bar. That's definitely not a weak lane for playing a drop search. Because normally you play a drop search on your combo turn, the card just dies in the back row, and unless you're Maid Dragon, that kind of sucks for you. But with this card can swing, and it's got a good power line.
Yeah, and part of the reason he's here too is it combines kind of nicely with this next card, considering that both of them can be grabbed off of the Yumiko combo because they're both level 1. The Yuji searches your deck, and this next card, our event card, is going to be salvaging a card, our waiting room, any character from our waiting room to our hand, and it goes to memory. And then we get to reveal the top card of our deck. If it's a level 0 or lower character, it is put into our stock. So kind of like the Mask event from Reincarnated as the Slime, but it can potentially refund itself, which is super great. And like I said before, with the Brainstormer and the Chizuru Climax swap that are both going to be rearranging the top card of your deck, you can set this up more often than not. But even if you go for it blind, you have a pretty good chance to hit, which is always nice. And it goes to memory, so all around a super good card. Going into level 2, I don't really have too many here, but this is the card I had talked, well, I guess I wasn't there for the set review, but in spirit, I'd mentioned this card, and then
I read the whole paragraph. I read the whole thing aloud.
Oh, you did? Okay,
Yeah.
Excellent. So everyone kind of knows my thoughts on it. It's kind of like the Aerosmith combo from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
I think you mean Little Bomber.
Oh, Little Bomber, sorry.
No.
Whatever. Fucking copyrights. It's that I don't believe they print that effect that often. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm pretty sure this and that one are like the only one, at least that I can remember.
So this one works pretty similarly to the Aerosmith Little Bomber combo. Where when you play the climax, for each one you have down on field, you're giving minus power to characters on your opponent's field. The Yumiko isn't quite as strong as the Little Bomber, but I think it's in a much better set. The Aerosmith JoJo's deck was always kind of a meme. The Aerosmith stuff was really good, but it was in a set that was so like hamstring for resources. And
Yeah,
never
surrounded
really
by mediocre cards, unlike Grisaia, a set that has good cards.
Yeah, not to mention, specifically, Grisaia has the means to climax swap and get into this like combo that you don't want to necessarily be running as a 4 of, because we want to still have a finisher combo in the deck. But against decks that are going all in on their board at they hit level 2, so things like standby decks, this can be a great way to tear down those walls. Yumiko's effect can also hit your opponent's back row, which is nice. It lets you kill a zone that usually you can't. And if you're killing off their assists in their back row, that can make the stuff in front even weaker. And even though I gotta refresh myself on the wording on this. Even though only the 3 Yumikos in your center stage will fire off, if you have a 4th one in your backstage, it still adds to the power that you shrink it, your opponent's character. So you choose up to X of your opponent's characters, give them minus 2,000 power equal to the number of this card on your field. So it can be up to 4, but it will only fire off for the ones in your front row. But you gotta remember also that Yumiko herself is 8,000 power, swinging for 9,000. So even if you don't outright kill the stuff that's in front of her, you shrink it small enough that with 3 of these, you should be killing your opponent's entire field, sniping their back rows and then running over their front row. And it's definitely something that you don't always need to go for either. In the matchups where it's good, you can sculpt for this early on and try to swap the climax into your hand. But in matchups where this Kudera Yumiko's effect is not very relevant, you can just send these to your stock or clock them, filter them out of your hand with other means, etc. So you go for it when you need to, and it's a nice little trump card to have. And Grisaia can actually pull it off pretty nicely. Going into the more traditional stuff that most decks would be doing at level 2, got just one more actual level 2 together with Meowmil Michiru, which is a level 3 assist. So 2,000 power to the level 3s in front, and you can pay 2 rested to bounce something, which is always nice. And then 5 early plays here. 4 copies of the Kazuki, which is my preferred early play in Grisaia. Even with set 2, I like the Kazuki best, I think. And it's a very much a me card. Early play Musashi, which is super cool. So when its damage is canceled, you mill the top card of your deck and burn your opponent 1+ the level of that card. So most early plays are going going to look more similar to this Machina we have next to her, which it heals if you have, when you play it down, it heals you, and you can play it at level 2. But the Kazuki is an interesting card that only Grisaia really has something like this as far as I know, being a very aggressively slanted early play to like help you push more damage. And it also works great as a functional off finisher as well, since we're probably only doing our finisher combo in a couple lanes. So great when you hit level 2 to keep tempo up and keep pushing damage, and also is our off finisher. And finally, we got 4 copies of Assertive Stance Monet, which is our finisher combo. Another card that I talked about in the set review, something that on its own isn't that impressive, but the fact that Grisaia has the ability to switch climaxes around so easily, and that this is off gold bar, means it's splashable, as you see in this deck here, how we only have 2 of the climax that goes with it, but we should be able to get it off every single game in multiples. So at the end of this card's attack, if you have Ticket to Heaven in your climax zone, you can pay 2, ditch 1 to scry your opponent's deck, and then restand this card and attack again. By modern standards, it's not a particularly impressive finisher, but that is always something that Grisaia has been kind of lacking. So the fact that we have a functional good finisher to close out games with is definitely nice, and it doesn't even need a reverse, so even better. But yeah, there really aren't a ton of other options to use aside from this Amane in set 1 Grisaia. And then here's the deck all laid out again. Carmen, I know I played against you with this deck a few times. I brought it to locals. I might have played on camera with it a few times. I don't know. But this is it all laid out. Any thoughts on it?
I mean, it's Aerosmith, right? Like Aerosmith is Aerosmith can always be kind of insane if you catch your opponent flat-footed with it. It's definitely like it's definitely a noob stomper card. Like people that don't know how to play around like losing their back row, or like don't prepare for losing their back row, you just kind of win off cards like Aerosmith. So it's nice to be able to play them when you can. Honestly, I think the most insane thing to me running through this is it is so wild to see these Grisaia cards in English. This is a set I never thought would come to English. It's like actually pretty like nuts.
I know. I the only reason I even bought this set in Japanese at first is because like I asked you immediately. I'm like, this isn't coming to English, right? And you're like, no, not in a million years.
Well, yeah, especially because like I don't know if you've ever played this game, you know why. I mean, it's an Aerogay like most visual novels of its ilk. Grisaia is pretty infamous for having some porn in there, but you know everybody loves porn, so Grisaia is pretty well loved. But the only other thing about this is like it's a little bit unfortunate. I think Grisaia in general, both Grisaia and Saikano, the memory slanted sets are going to struggle really hard right now with Alice being as popular as it is, especially going into fall because Springfest is finishing up here. We only have one more event in New Jersey next week before we go into fall, which then will be singles. You'll have a much higher chance of seeing Alice, a 66% higher chance to see Alice, in fact, on average. So the thing that actually is the most annoying about playing into Alice for these decks is not even the Alice itself. It's that the 1-0 gives negative 1k to characters in front row. And look at all these good cards with 1,000 or less power in Grisaia and Saikano. It's so unfortunate. But you know, eventually Alice will be banned. It will most certainly be banned at some point. It is not going to go unbanned. I would put money on it, and I think most other players would. So eventually, you know, you'll be able to run wild with this stuff, and it will be just as good as it always was.
Yeah, I think this specific build of Grisaia too, which we had talked about a little bit before deciding to present it today, is that it folds pretty hard to Alice, especially the level 1 combo being an on reverse that doesn't get big enough. That definitely really hurts it. But again, once the issue with Alice gets addressed, once we have some bans that everyone knows are coming, a deck like this could have its time to shine going forward as a definite way to exploit the powerful Aerosmith effect. But if you're, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you're looking for something that's a bit more tuned, should I say, or more appropriate for the specific meta we're in, we included on this last slide, this was the deck that Carmen and I did a deck tech on for a few months back when Grisaia got unbanned in Japanese fully. With just set 1, the de facto meta list is going to look pretty much almost identical to this deck right here, as this is mostly set 1 cards.
I could tell you the cards right off the top of my head. So the Kazuki Brainstorm, that yellow level 0 right there, you're going to replace that with just the Search Brainstorm. Just 2 copies of the Search Brainstorm that Andy runs in this deck, the Yumiko, the blue one. The green Machina, you're going to replace that with a level 0 Yumiko. It is a 3k that is 4,500 when it is alone. We've seen that card see some recent success in some Pants Book slime lists. It's really good in decks that just want the raw card. They just need a card card to survive, so that they can, you know, get that extra free swing. Grisaia really wants that, so a card like the Yumiko is really good there. And then the level 3 teacher there, you just replace that with another Kazuki early play. Just play 2 of it, and that is exactly the list for England. The list barely changes, and if you want to go check out the video, we'll have it linked in the description. There's like a flow chart in the end, how you play this deck. This deck's pretty notoriously helmet, as people like to say. A very simple strategy. The exact same play pattern is still apt for England. So.
Yep, figured we should just mention it, throw it in here at the end, because it is so similar to just a set 1 build. And that's probably what's going to be the most powerful, like, out of the gate.
Yeah.
But I hope you guys all enjoyed the video. Here's the stuff we put at the end of every video here. What's coming up for content, Carmen?
Still a couple set reviews we need to get through. People really like the sort of meta talk video that we did on Alice, so I might do a couple more of those, just on some, you know, like just more abstract concepts. Like I had the video on shuffling, the video on the Alice, how to answer Alice, things like that. Just sort of going into it, because I feel like I heard a bunch of people say, oh, like just run a couple level 2 killers and you're fine. Like, no, that's not how you should think of it. So that was the whole reason why we made that video. Unless of course you're Kaguya, or like you're playing Chainsaw Man and you have power, then level 2 killer's fine because you run over all of them. But you can go check out that video as well, from last week. But that's about it for upcoming content. Of course, more deck techs, more set reviews as normal. We'll probably do another live stream for Avatar if we can. People really like those for the English originals, so you can look out for that. We still have to do Azure Lane. I keep forgetting about Azure Lane because like
it's another set I thought we'd never get.
Like massive. Yeah. They've been much more liberal bringing stuff over, which is, it's both good and bad. There are ups and downs. I feel like the aggressive release schedule is a big reason why a lot of shops don't like to carry Weiss, but it's nice for the players to be able to get some of these sets. But Weiss is pretty healthy. We had a lot of players in Chicago. I think it was like close to, I can't remember. I think it was like 60 plus teams. It was 7 rounds. So
yeah, the game's definitely growing.
Yeah, it had to be over 64 players or 64 teams. That's quite a lot of people, close to 200 people.
Yeah, maybe we'll see you guys in New Jersey.
Yep, we got a big force coming out to that one. I was there by my lonesome in Chicago, but we got multiple teams. I will be there with Dean and Hansen closing out the season with Burn 1, and then Andy will be there with Brandon and Robert, and then both the Stevensons and Tanner will be there as well.
Oh, good. I'm glad they're coming. I wasn't sure if they were.
Yeah. They're flying. They have their own really aggressive trip. They like fly in Saturday evening and then fly out like Sunday night, like not even 2 full days. It's like a pretty insane turnaround trip because Brian was trying to save on PTO.
No offense, New Jersey.
Yeah,
a lovely city.
Oh, Tanner was like, I love everybody in Newark, but I need to get the hell out of Newark as quickly as possible. He's like, I hate the area. I love the people there, but I hate the area. He just wants to leave. So.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you again in the next one.
See ya.